English musician and one of the founding members of cult industrial group Throbbing Gristle, Chris Carter, tells us all about the records that changed his life. I grew up on a transistor radio diet of BBC radiophonic and pop music, plus some easy listening records and crooners that my parents were into. I'd been building electronic circuits for some years, as I was given an educational radio kit and a small tape recorder when I was 11 or 12. So as my knowledge of electronics developed, I would hook up my homemade circuits and little tape deck to my father's larger reel-to-reel tape recorder, and while my parents were at work I'd begin experimenting, making and recording weird lo-fi sounds through our hi-fi in the living room. Then in 1969, the first time I heard an electric storm, it was like an epiphany. It was mind-blowing. It has those quirky melodies and vocals, odd time signatures, it's part horror and part pop. I had this moment of realization that combining melodies with unusual soundscapes and treated voices was something I could do too. Well, of course, I couldn't then. But I believed it enough to spur me on to build more gear and start performing live. It's an album I still regularly listen to and put into DJ sets and playlists. I love that it has this strange quality that makes it difficult to pin down to a specific period. I guess it's timeless. Walkabout Ost by John Barry. Nick Roeg's 1971 enigmatic masterpiece Walkabout is one of my all-time favorite films. I first saw it on the big screen when I was an impressionable 18-year-old and was spellbound. Those stunning visuals with John Barry's rich and melancholic arrangements are one of his best and most enduring scores. It was a perfect combination. The film haunted me so much I saw it 3 times in a week. And not least because I already had a mad crush on Jenny Agutter. The soundtrack wasn't officially released until decades later, and for years I just had a hissy cassette bootleg of it. Then, in 1978, I found an obscure Japanese copy of the soundtrack in a shop in Soho. I paid about £30 for it, which back then was a hell of a lot for an LP, but it sounded amazing. Of course, I played the vinyl endlessly, until it was released on CD about 20 years ago. The album is a hallucinogenic mix of those trademark emotive John Barry melodies and soaring string arrangements, ethereal choirs, finely tuned sound design and children's nursery rhymes. Presented as only he could. Even though it has this poignant vibe about it, I've always found listening to Walkabout to be wonderfully inspirational. Blade Runner Ost by Vangelis.